Good evening and welcome to the February 28th meeting of the Teaching and Learning Committee. So just for people's information, the committee meeting is an opportunity for members of the public to participate and exchange comments, and I typically invite comments from the public as opposed to a regular board meeting, which you may learn about later this evening when we have a session where it's a business meeting that isn't conducive to exchanges. So tonight we have a single item on the agenda, the Branford High School scheduling and performance data. Our principal and Mr. Hernandez will give a presentation on that. And Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you, Mr. Prinz. I will not be presenting tonight, just for points of clarification, but I have the pleasure of introducing Lee, who will introduce his administrative team as well as teachers from the high school that are here to speak about scheduling and performance data. In a nutshell, what we're doing a little bit tonight is looking into the future. That's the scheduling piece and how that ties into some of the things that the high school leadership team and staff have been working on related to NEASC as well as related to just a shift in practice. And then we are going to be also looking at the current, and the current being the student performance piece. So that's really, we have a little window into the future, and then we'll end being grounded in what the students are currently doing from a performance standpoint.
And I'm going to exercise the prerogative of the chair and interrupt and say that NEASC is the New England Association of Schools and Colleges, which accredits high schools and other educational institutions, as we just had done with our intermediate school.
That's correct.
So they're
thank you.
Huge. They're all over the world, actually. But
so with that, I turn it over to Mr. Panagoulias.
Thank you first for having us this evening. I'm joined here by my administrative team, who I will let...
is your green light on? There you go.
Who I will let introduce themselves. Again, I'm Lee Panagoulias, principal of Branford High School.
Joe Briganti, assistant principal at the high school.
Stephanie Bird, assistant principal at the high school.
And Diane Dadio, the dean of students.
Thank you. And when we first discussed putting together this presentation and the two parts of it, one dealing with our performance data, and then the second looking at the work that we've done in reviewing our master schedule. At first view, it looks like they're two very different things. And the more work that we did with these two subjects and we discussed them and we reviewed the processes, like Superintendent Hernandez says, looking into the future and the present, that we saw more connections than we even realized, and how something like the master schedule of a building can really support the work that we're doing in the areas of instruction, curriculum, assessment, and supporting student growth. So the first half of this, we'll talk just a little bit about some of our performance data in the form of our recent PSATs, our SATs, as well as our advanced placement and other advanced courses. And we'll look at not only the data, but we'll look at the access that our students have to these different tests and to these different courses.
Right, thank you, and I apologize for interrupting again. Just for the public's information, we try to conserve paper, so these things are not available to the public tonight, but as soon as the meeting is over, they will be made available on the district's website. So you'll be able to access them after today's meeting.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
When we're talking about our performance data, what we first want to do is give it context. And the context that we're going to talk a little bit about first tonight is the work that we're doing to support our student growth. Because one of the ways that we measure our student growth is through standardized testing. And that's just one of the ways. But we also have to look about how do we set the environment, the learning environment for our students and for our teachers to grow. And so first, when we look at that, we look at our professional development and collaboration model. No one aspect of our collaboration and professional development model can work by itself. They all have to flow within each other. And so when we look at the professional development that we work with our teachers to gauge their interest and what they're engaged in, when we work with our coaches who help support that, when we look at our professional development hours, the time that we use in release time, the embedded professional development model that we're in our third year where teachers at the high school work together and around common areas of interest, or things that, for example, curriculum understanding or implementation. Those all result in more rigorous lessons for our students. They result in more authentic lessons for our students. But that professional collaboration and development can't happen in a vacuum. The instructional model at the high school, though it's only in its third year, has been a really integral part in working with our teachers, working with the leadership team at helping to identify areas that our teachers want to grow and that our students would benefit from that. It also helps to create one of the most important things, and the word safe means a variety of things, but also a school has to be a safe place to learn, to take intellectual risks. And I think that's one of the things that we always want to support our teachers and our students with creating and cultivating that environment that helps them take risks and take chances. Because, again, making a mistake is really only a mistake if you don't learn from it. And that goes for adults and for our students. Also, the really intense work that we have done the last 3 years around curriculum. I go back to a time 15 years ago when we looked at each area of our curriculum once every 10 years. And then it was put away for 9, and then we came back to it within 10 years. And I look at the remarkable steps that we've made, which, again, is a tremendous amount of work, effort, sacrifice on the part of teachers and administrative staff with support from our central office. But looking at what we are now implementing in our ELA classes, the work that we're starting to implement and pilot in math, the work that we will do, or are starting to do just now in science, and will do in all of our areas, world language and social studies. It's a tremendous amount of work. It takes a tremendous amount of resources and support. But the advancements that we've made as a district over the last 3 years in the areas of curriculum are tremendous. And again, you can't build curriculum without having instruction with it. And so the idea of having high quality, research-based instructional practices that engage our students, that promote student talk, student inquiry, again, it goes hand in hand with curriculum. It's sometimes difficult to manage, and it's a challenge to manage two massive buckets like curriculum and instruction. But you can't do one without the other, and you can't just focus on one and neglect the other. They have to both work hand in hand. Also, the idea of making data-driven decisions. Now, that's a term for the last 12 years since I've been in administration in the high school, we've talked about data-driven decisions. I think we tend to make those quite technical, but they don't have to be. It can be simply doing a learning walk where a group of colleagues in the high school walk and they observe fellow colleagues and sitting down to discuss what we see and having colleagues identify trends that they see within the school. It could be the administrative team doing the same, where we're walking around and identifying trends. It could be through our teacher evaluation process, which it's a support model. You know, a lot of people refer to it as an evaluation because it is, but it's also in the framework of a support model for our teachers to grow. So all of those provide data for us that helps us focus on student growth. The last part here that's there is the idea of reimagining our core programs. I look at programs that we have currently at the high school, and I think sometimes we get caught up in terms like the capstone project or an advisory program or 40 hours of community service. I think what we have to remain focused on is what is the outcome that we're looking from these programs. We're trying to develop self-directed learners. We're trying to develop socially aware students. We're trying to create a one-on-one connection with our students. Those can be done in a variety of ways, and so I think the idea of always being married to an existing program and not looking to it to evolve would be a mistake. And so all of these things support student growth and are kind of the umbrella for which I want to put this performance data. I talked about encouraging student risks. We want to challenge our students to take courses that not only engage them, but also challenge them. And so when we talk about our highest level courses that we offer at Branford High School, like an AP or an ECE course, we want to work with our kids.
CE?
ECE's Early College Experience is our partnership with the University of Connecticut, where teachers go up to UConn and are specially accepted. They have to apply, specially accepted, and then qualify, and they actually become an adjunct member of the UConn faculty. And so we currently have several courses. When a student completes that course, they don't take necessarily just an assessment. They also, they either take an assessment or a portfolio they have to put together, and then they receive actual UConn credits. So for a course that runs 2 of our semesters, a student actually can earn 6 credits, and that goes on a UConn transcript, and that is accepted by most state universities as actual credit. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get into the APs for sure, because the AP and the ECE programs, again, AP is advanced placement, offer 2 very different things to our students. And again, how I would speak about AP now is different than I may have talked about it 10 years ago, for sure. And so encouraging kids to take risk or making those courses open to them. When we talk about advanced courses, I always want to be sure we're not just talking about AP and ECE and honors. We're talking about advanced woodworking, advanced auto, where students have gone through preliminary courses and chosen to take the next levels of advanced gaming, for example, which involves very advanced coding. And so there's, again, those engage a wide variety of students, and maybe not traditionally what we think as an advanced course. We also give students the opportunity to contract up, and what that means, if they haven't met a recommended grade, we can put together a program for them to do over the summer, whether a traditional paper and pencil type program, or now we're developing things online where they can demonstrate proficiency in a given area and that they are willing to be challenged and aggressive and committed, and so that they don't meet, quote unquote, a prerequisite, they still have an opportunity to take those courses. We're looking at ways to explore and offering advanced courses at earlier ages for our students. So that's where you get something like the honors option, where students in that situation in a heterogeneous class can choose to take an honors curriculum, which is usually looking at certain topics in a more in-depth way. It's not just simply more work. And in those situations, we also want to provide a little bit of a safe ground for our kids. And what I mean by that is they can try it for a few weeks and then decide if they want to actually go through with that. And so I talked about already the recommended, but not always a prerequisite. Advanced courses offered earlier. Another example is this year, we'll be offering to the incoming freshmen the opportunity to take chemistry honors in the freshman year. That therefore then plays out as being able to take it in science, be able to take some advanced placement courses in their sophomore year if they choose, or their junior or their senior year. So we're creating new pathways all the time for our kids. And then lastly, our partnerships with local colleges, universities, and vocational schools. We've created credit-bearing paths with Gateway Community College, for example, in some of our vocational programs, occupational foods. We have a connection with Yale University for our world language program, for languages that are kind of very, very unique languages that aren't usually offered at school, usually because you can't find staffing for that, or really consistent enrollment. And we're actually able to subsidize that through the Board of Education for students that choose to do that, as well as vocational schools are, for example, our partnership with Porter and Chester Institute, where students can go and get a jump start on a trade that they're going to pursue after high school. So that idea of support, and also that support leads to risk-taking on everybody's part in a positive way, kind of contextualizes a little bit some of the data that we'll talk about. So we'll start with the access that students have to advanced courses. Again, by advanced courses, I want to be clear that we're talking about our AP, ECE, honors, or an advanced level course in any vocational elective that we may have. And so we have a breakdown on the first slide by grade of how many students in each of the classes this year are enrolled in an advanced course. The reason why we've left freshmen out is only because we don't have that data collected yet. We need to see if they complete that, or we need to see what they end up finishing in their second semester yet. So it would be incomplete if I added the 9th grade in. The trend that I like in this is that it increases from year to year. So the students, as they attend Branford High School, as their confidence increases, they're taking more advanced courses as they go through. That tells me that we've got a diverse program of studies, always looking to expand, but also that students are developing the skills in order to be successful in those courses as they start from 9th, 10th, and 11th to 12th grade. The one thing I do want to add about the advanced placement courses that Stephanie will talk about in just a moment is we always are looking to expand our program of studies. As a school of our size, there's always a limit to how many different places we can pull ourselves. But there are one course that you won't see listed on there that is being run this year now, which is our advanced calculus course. Right, we've always run an A and B section. For the first time this year, we've run a B and C, which is the second part of advanced calculus. And we're also will have teachers training this summer on advanced computer science principles, which is a coding course that's based in coding, so that we can not only offer an advanced placement computer science principles course, but also a standard computer science principle courses in coding. So again, available to all of our students. So with that, Stephanie will talk a little bit about how our kids are doing.
Sure. Can you advance?
I could.
So here you'll see data related to students taking our advanced placement exams during the 2016-2017 school year. So on the left-hand side, you'll see a list of our course offerings, and I think it's important to note that some of those courses are advanced placement courses, but some of the courses also include the early college experience that Lee was talking about earlier, such as English and physics. You'll see the number of test takers, the students enrolled in the courses, and then also the percent in that particular class that took the test. So overall, approximately 63% of our students at Branford High School enrolled in our AP courses took AP exams or opted to take the AP exams. And again, I'll go back again to the opportunity for the early college experience, and I'll draw your attention, for example, to our physics class. You'll see that 18% of students opted to take the AP exam, and that's because out of the 11 students, 10 were enrolled in the early college experience. One particular student opted to be part of the ECE program, but also take the AP exam. So I believe we're seeing more and more students opt to take that early college experience.
And just to contextualize that a little bit, our students are very mature consumers. And when I say that in relation to a test, they look at an advanced, by the time they are going to take their test in May, many of them know what schools they're going to go to. Or they have an idea of what schools will accept what, if they're seniors. But even as juniors or possibly sophomores, schools don't accept the advanced placement and replace and give you credit as much as they did, let's say, 15 years ago. They may allow you to take a more advanced course and skip an introductory course instead, but many of the students choose to still take that introductory course because they find when they take a course in high school in advanced placement and then take it again at an introductory level in college, they still find an advantage to that, and they don't want to jump right into it. They see the value of earning 3 credits, 6 credits. If they were to take 4 ECEs, they can earn up to 24 credits going into college already. And that can have a financial benefit to them because they can utilize that in a major outside of their major. So, for example, if they were going into science, but they've taken ECE, English, that can take care of some of their electives. If they're going into biology and have taken an economics course, my daughter has done that. She took ECE economics and was able to use those 6 credits for her own, in terms of her electives, and then actually be able to manage her semesters a little bit better. So our students are consumers. They make wise, informed decisions. So as Steph was saying, when you see a low number like that, that doesn't mean necessarily that people aren't choosing to take it. Now, I will say this, some are. You know, if you have 4 to 5 APs, you may choose to take 2 or 3 of the exams and not all of them, just because the rigors of studying that might be a little bit too much to do in a short period of time. You know, we're always keeping our eye open for it, but each exam is approximately $80 a piece. And so we do not mandate that they take the exam when they take a course. We can't do that if we're not willing to cover the entire cost. But we also will work with any student that we know might have a financial need. So if they wish to take them, they can. But that's a small factor, I believe, in whether a student takes the exam or not. But it's not just simply, I want to give a little bit of background to that number.
Okay, so here you'll see the percentage of AP students who scored 3 or above, recognizing that the score scale is 1 to 5, and while most colleges accept a 4 or a 5 for credit, the College Board does determine that a 3 is passing. And I think it's important here to note that, the dynamics of a particular course changes from year to year. So, for example, one of our most popular AP courses, AP Psychology, in 2015 to 2016, you'll see a little bit of a jump, goes down there. In 2015, we had a larger group of juniors taking AP Psychology. So when they got to their senior year, that number went down a little bit because they had already taken the test. And then here you'll see AP students with scores of 3 or above. You'll see that Branford High School is fairly consistent with state percentages and averages, and also surpasses global percentages as well.
This slide that's up now will help put the next few slides in context as far as the standardized testing at the high school. Right now, currently, the PSATs are given to 10th and 11th graders in October. Later that year, the juniors will take the SAT test either late March or early April. And this year, will be the first year that the high school will be piloting the NGSS field test. The NGSS.
Could you tell us what that is?
Oh, Next Generation Science Standards, I'm sorry. And that will also be to the juniors in the second week of April, and again, that will be the first time that we'll be doing that. This slide, I just want to make reference to the title. This is the grade 10 PSAT, a longitudinal look at the students moving on to grade 11, taking the PSATs. So the students have 2 opportunities to take the PSAT before they take the SAT. So that'll be 3 times that they'll be testing in that area. For this here, you'll see grade 10, and then a whole year later, taking it again as juniors for the PSATs in October. What you want to see when you look at the bars, in the first 2 bars, evidence-based reading and writing, you notice the first bar is for 10th grade, and then that same group of students taking the PSATs an entire year later in the same evidence-based reading and writing. What you want to see are the red bars going down, preferably the yellow getting thinner and the green getting bigger, which is what you see here. There's like a 4% difference between the 10th and 11th grade, and that 4% you could surmise and say, 2% went into the, approaching, and the other 2 went into meeting or being at grade level. Very similar pattern when you take a look at the math. You see that the yellow has gotten thinner and the green has gotten larger over a year. It makes sense. When you take the PSAT in October and then you take it again in October the following year, they've completed that entire year of math, whether it be geometry or algebra 2. This slide here is grade 11 PSAT to the SAT. So these students here on this slide are actually seniors right now. So last year when they took the PSAT in October, Approximately, 5 months later, they took their actual SAT, which is a graduation requirement later that year. So in a similar fashion, the first two columns are evidence-based reading and writing. And again, you'll see going down from the PSAT to the SAT, which is the second column, 23% to 20%, 9% for the yellow band going down to 6%, and the green jumping up. And that's just in a matter of a few months, 5 months. Again, when you look at the math, interesting here, you'll see that the red band is still approximately 46.8%. And then again, when they take the SAT, I'm assuming those are the same kids. But you do see a decrease in the yellow band, making it up to the red. So when I take a look at these both slides, there are some kids that are making big jumps from the red to the green. And with the math, we see that at least with the yellow to the green. And that's kind of an overview of the last few years with the standardized testing.
One thing just to add about the PSAT, Branford High School giving the PSAT is something that we've done for the last 5 years. And actually within our given area of schools, we were one of the first schools for the Board of Education to support and financially all of our students taking that PSAT. You find that more of a common practice now in the schools in our area, but we were one of the first schools to do that. And so both the PSAT in the 10th and 11th grade year that comes at no charge to the student. And the SAT is also at no charge to the students. That's very different, again, when we went to school, where the only way that you could take those tests are outside of your school. It's actually also changed the testing calendar a little bit for our kids, which I think everybody's still adjusting to a little bit. In that there are outside of school, there are less dates now that the College Board offers the exam, because they know in Connecticut all schools will give it.
And then it snows.
Was that?
And then it snows.
All the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Every year.
That's Lee's fault.
The one thing, and this goes into our last slide for this, is just when we talk about that red band area. When we look at our data, we look at where we're moving kids. And the students that are achieving in that red band, which are our highest need kids, are the kids that need our most support. And so when I look at this last slide at some of the things that we're looking to do and things that we're looking to develop for our students, we're looking at a wide array of supports. One thing that I had talked about before was our online pilot that we're working with this year. And our online pilot is a program called Edgenuity. And that has the ability to not replace courses that we have, but help to supplement them. And it really does a great job at taking the curriculum that we input, so it's in line with the curriculum work that's being done, letting the kids assess what their needs are, and then that program itself tailors a program for them where they can work on specific skills in math and in English language arts and world language for even areas that aren't tested here. So we have a small pilot that is working on that actually this semester for the first time. We call that our Ladders program because that allows kids to climb up and to grow, and so we gave it the name Ladders. We thought it was catchy. We also have our ASSIST program, which is our RTI process, where students are referred to the team. Our team is made up of the specialists within our school, and they look to connect resources both within our school and outside our school to meet our kids' needs. We have Freshman Seminar, which is actually in its second year now, where we take students that aren't identified in our through special education or do not have a 504 plan, but still need supports in specific academic areas that were identified at the intermediate school by looking at their STAR assessment, by looking at teacher recommendations, and we give them a very, we dedicate one math teacher, one English teacher, one social studies and science teacher to work with that group of kids. It's also supported by our student support staff each Friday, and that's a team model that the kids work with. And then I go back to our instructional coaching model, which really pushes all of us to really examine how engaged our students truly are and what type of strategies that we can plan for that are connected to our curriculum and help us really implement our curriculum. And so we're always looking to not only move the students that are in the approaching band, but really look at all those bands and see where our kids are and how they can grow. And that's whether you're in a green, yellow, or red band. We want all of our students to grow. So when we talk about things from all the way from our advanced placement courses to ECE to some of the support programs I just talked about now, they're designated to take our kids from where they are and help them grow. Thank you.
Before I ask for comments or questions, so the next piece that you're going to be presenting on, will you require this much time, or will you have a little bit less time?
A little bit less time.
Okay, good. So, board members?
I have just one quick
Committee
question.
members?
When
Shannon?
we look at this data, how is the information that you're showing us today articulated to the students? Do they know where they are, what color, so to speak, that they're in, how much growth that they've made? Is that something they do in advisory? Is it something they do with their guidance counselors? But if I went home and said, what color are you? You know, would they know? Not really, but would they know where they are, how they've grown?
The students don't get the color code, but they do, after the PSAT, they will get a score report. When we get the score report, we get 2 copies. One goes to the student, one goes in the CUME folder. The one copy that goes to the student, the guidance program has developed a system where they alternate which departments that they go into. I think this year they went into the U.S. history classes. Okay. And, they spend a lot of dedicated time going over the score report with them. The score report does break it down by the actual number, breaks it down by the subsections, and even gives them the areas where they were, strong and areas of improvement. They also spend some time making sure that every single student gets linked up to the College Board, where once they sign on to that, they could go to their testing, they go to the questions that they got right or wrong. If they click on a question they got wrong, it gives them multiple questions to keep practicing those areas, but also link them up to Khan Academy. We've been doing that for a few years, but as the SAT has evolved and the College Board, the websites and the supports have gotten much better and more available to the students and the specifics of it.
Thank you.
Khan is great.
Anything else? Betsy?
I have a couple of comments. Going back to your introduction and the work that's going behind the student growth. I just want to say I love the idea of the learning walks and the fact that your data doesn't just come from the scores and that it comes from the teacher's instincts in a lot of cases, because I think we tend to focus sometimes too much on the numbers and not enough on what our teachers know about their kids, their students. So I love that. I just had that experience at my own parent-teacher conference last week, that the teacher's instincts and the numbers aren't necessarily the same, and I love that. And I also love the advanced woodworking and advanced coding, and those things are great for the kids who maybe aren't taking the APs. And thank you for the comment about the kids being good consumers with those AP classes. I remember our student rep last year said he took all these AP classes and then he got into the military academy and they don't take any of them. They don't take any AP credits. So the kids are very smart about that these days.
You would have done it anyway.
I think that was it. I think those are my comments.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
So, quick question, the ratio of guidance counselors to students, how many students does a guidance counselor have?
The guidance counselors can have anywhere from 150 to 200 students. It depends just how the alphabet falls, which years are coming in. We don't like to do too much variation in the alphabet breakdown because a lot of times you have families coming in and they've got a relationship with the guidance counselor. But we do monitor each of those, just the ratios to make sure that no one guidance counselor has too much of a caseload.
You want to follow up?
Nope.
Okay. I thank you for your comment about how you look at AP differently today from 10 years ago. I remember a huge push of wanting to bring AP to the younger and younger students. As they get more and more sophisticated, they should have that. I have a whole different perspective today as well, and it's the kind of skimming the surface, and once they take the exam, it's gone. All of their knowledge that they crammed into their head for AP classes, which get them very little nowadays, my understanding. They don't really get the credits that they used to. I don't know if you want to comment on that, but it is different, and I'm very excited about the ECE, the early college experience.
Yeah, I mean, we want to offer the most rigorous program that we can, and also have it be beneficial to our students.
It used to be AP. But
Yeah, and I think if you were to look at advanced placement courses and questions that are on exams from 10 years ago, they're much different than they are now. I know in many of our AP courses, we've gone through an evolution, and the teachers have worked on the curriculum to advance that. I think sometimes we have to remember, as we're offering these courses and where we're offering and how many and how young, sometimes the reasons we would like a student to take an advanced placement course might be different than the reason they're taking it.
Sure.
And so
It's a
helping
discipline
students
thing,
and
right?
families manage that flow of, and the rigor of their overall schedule, and to be honest, not taking on too much.
Yeah.
And then you give them 1 year or something, just as professionals with experience, that we always have to keep an eye on.
And I want to recognize staff. I remember when Joel was getting certified to do AP History, I think it was, years ago. I think that's a great PD opportunity for them, regardless of how the course actually plays out. Anyway, so let's see. Do we have numbers of how many students actually get early college credits?
We have them. I don't have them with me, but I can find that.
Yeah, I'd
and
love to
let
hear
Hannah
that.
know.
Because that's an economic issue, and people probably would like to know that, very much so.
Yeah,
No kidding.
Yeah, and I didn't want to feel like I was exaggerating the number, but I would say the vast majority of our students do apply for it and are accepted with it.
So just for people who may not have heard, Joel teaches history I'm not sure at what levels, but 90% of his students take early college experience classes.
Or I thought you meant 90% of the students who take ECE classes receive the university credit.
Oh, I see. Okay, that's a
That's
very
what you
different
were
story.
asking. Me too.
Okay, that's still impressive number.
Very.
The comparisons between PSAT and SAT, is that apples to apples?
It
So,
is
you know,
now.
if
It is now.
Okay.
It is. They're getting more in alignment. You know,
So
each
when we talk
year-
about math in the PSAT and a jump to the SAT numbers, we're talking about an actual improvement.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
The only other thing, so I heard you say something about we always examine how engaged our students are. What are some of the criteria that you look at to reflect that?
Sure. I think one of our bases for that is our teacher evaluation instructional framework, which when we look at that, it's broken into 3 domains, but the first one deals with classroom environment, which deals with how students are interacting with each other, and the second deals with instruction, and what the learning behaviors of an engaged student look like. And so when we talk about something like a learning walk, when I talk about the collaboration we've done as a district around going into classrooms and talking about instruction, it's not simply a student being in a group. It's what they're doing within that group, and is it part of the culture of a class? It's whether they're becoming independent learners and they're creating their own questions and they're taking their learning in their own direction based on inquiry. And so those are just a couple of ways. It's that peer-to-peer talk, whether they're self-assessing, whether they're peer assessing, and not just the talk, but how are the students using that talk to improve their learning. It's the idea that's, just an emphasis in our math department is the idea of students modeling, where they're taking different approaches and then assessing which one is the most effective. So it's not just simply, this is the one way to do it, that there's more than one ways to approach a problem.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the public for this part of the presentation? Comments? Okay, thank you. Okay, we're up for the next, the schedule.
You want to switch out? Yeah, I don't think there's enough seats. Just going to switch out my team here.
Oh, yeah, very nice. Yeah, thank you, team, for your presentation on that first part. That was very informative. Stephanie and Joe, thanks.
Wait, is Diane staying with us? Do you want you to sit down? This yours? Is Joe?
I know we're on a bit of a time limit, so I don't want to seem like I'm rushing, but
No, I think
it might.
we're doing okay, I think.
The next, thank you. The next part of our presentation, first I want to let the teachers that are here introduce themselves. They were part of our schedule review, our faculty schedule review committee at different points during the entire process, and this process has been an 18-month, actually, process that we've been going through this. So
Hi, I'm Joel Henricks. I'm a social studies teacher, and I've been on the committee for the duration of the 18 months.
What levels, Joe?
This year, I teach juniors in current issues. I teach juniors in current issues honors, and then it didn't run last year, so it wasn't on your handouts, but we teach ECE, Western Civilization. We have 2 sections of that this year.
I'm Alicia Loesch. I also have been on the committee for the duration.
I'm Jennifer Ryan. I'm a new addition to the committee, and I teach English.
And I'm Diane Dadio. I'm here to provide support.
thank you. Like I said, this process is something that we've been going through about 18 years. We have not, we've had the same schedule at Branford High School for the last 20 years. This process, just to, again, to give it a little bit of context, is one that it's very intensive. It's one that you have to be very thoughtful about each step that you take along this process. And sometimes you take 2 steps forward and then take a step to the side and step back and then one big leap forward. This is something that we went through with having, even as a person that's been in this system for 24 years, I had not had any experience in this, and nor did most of the teachers. And so we were just very careful as we went through this, because the one thing we know over 20 years in any district, the needs of the students have changed over 20 years. And so it requires us to look at our schedule and see, is there a better schedule to meet the needs of our students? We'll start where Diane will just kind of talk about what we have right now for a schedule.
As many of you may know, we have our current schedule is comprised of 4 marking periods, 2 semesters. We have 8 periods to a day, 45-minute classes, days starting at 7:30 and ending at 2:25. We alternate A and B days, and primarily to accommodate programming needs such as math and science labs, and also physical education and health requirements. We have 2 lunch waves. Evenly distributed are the number of students in each lunch wave, and lunches are approximately 20 minutes long. And the day ends at 2:25.
And so just to begin the process, our NEASC process was completed last October. Actually started 2 years before that through a self-study. Through that self-study, we look at a variety of different factors in our school, different strands or standards for our school. One of them was our schedule. And so through that self-study process, one of the recommendations was that we wanted to support our curriculum and the instruction that we were looking to implement, that one thing that we should do is examine our schedule. That idea that comes from our faculty through the self-study was also reinforced by the visiting committee. The visiting committee was a group of educational professionals from throughout New England that spent 4 very intensive days here at Branford High School, reviewing not only the self-study, but also looking at our practice, shadowing students, talking to every stakeholder, students, parents, community members. And through their report, one of their recommendations was not that we had to change our schedule, but that we should review our schedule as good professional practice. And so we began that practice. Also, I talked about, in terms of other factors that contributed, whether we had a NEAS study or not, was that the attributes that we were looking to and characteristics that we're looking to develop in our students, not only in the high school, but from pre-K to 12, did our current schedule, was it flexible enough? As a district, when I started and the high school had 1,150 students, and now has, within the 800s, could we offer a program of studies that was diverse and flexible enough, and not having the conflicts for students as they requested courses to still maintain and develop these attributes, as well as, again, as I said before, and this is the connection between the first presentation where we talked about our data and our schedule, is reimagining and looking at not necessarily the characteristics through capstone, advisory, our PGRs, and community service that we're looking to develop, but maybe the vehicles needed to evolve and needed to change. And how could a schedule support that type of work? I really want to emphasize and thank, to be very honest with you, everybody that's been involved with this over the last 18 months. There's a lot of work being done in this district, a lot of great work, a lot of intensive work. This is on top of that. Though it supports all of that work and has the potential to support all of that work, talking about changing a master schedule at a high school is complex. Trying to pick one, develop the drivers of what meet our student needs, and then investigate the myriad of different choices that are out there. With most choices, you can find research on both ends of things. So to pick out the research that you feel really helps to support our drivers, and then also pay attention to the research that doesn't, is a very intensive process. The members of this committee, they spent a lot of time after school. They visited schools. The parents that gave us our feedback through our surveys, that participated in focus committees, that are part of our CASC committee, which we bring this to, which is our community and academic standards committee that's made up of students and parents and teachers, all gave input into this. Our students who were surveyed, and really this is a schedule, for some of them it won't affect, because we're talking about 2019 and 20. But they were still invested in trying to give their feedback of what they thought could be better and what they liked in our current schedule. So it's been a very, very, very intensive process, but also a very inclusive process. This is not a decision any one person should make or any one group should make, because it affects everybody.
Could I ask you just to repeat what CASC stands for again?
Community and Academic Standards Committee.
Okay.
It's a committee, just quickly, that meets once a month, the first Tuesday of every month, and it's open to representatives from every grade, students, parents, administrators. It's actually run by 2 faculty members, and actually this year the committee voted to actually have a 3rd member, which is a student. So it'll be facilitated by 2 faculty members and a student, where we talk about different issues that affect our school community.
Terrific.
And
Thank
make
you.
recommendations. Through all that work, we identified the drivers that are the lens that we should look at any type of schedule. So first, the drivers that were identified, and to be honest with you, this started with a list of about 50. And from those 50, we consolidated, we reviewed, we made adjustments, and tried to identify the highest leverage drivers. And so from that, the 4 drivers that we looked at any school was, did it meet the diverse needs of our students? Did it support the shift in instruction and curriculum that was going on in our district? Did it maintain innovative and flexible program of studies? And did it help to enhance and create and support a positive school climate? And some of those things mean different things to different people. When you talk about a school climate, for me, that means slowing things down a little bit. Understand the stressors that our students are feeling right now and being plugged in at all times. And that the amount of movement they have in a day and their schedules outside of school and how intense those can be. and how can based on the different climate than 20 years ago, how are there schedules out there which help to slow things down a little bit? So some of these things mean different things to different people, but they're pretty big buckets and lenses for us to look at any schedule. So, through this process, the schedule which we have focused in on and would like to adapt is a trimester schedule. Okay. A trimester schedule would feature all of the following. There would be longer class periods, going from 8, currently we have 8 periods, and this schedule would feature a 6-period day. So where our classes now are 45 minutes, the classes then would be approximately 65 minutes long. Again, supporting some of the instruction and curriculum work that we're doing. That would then therefore lead to fewer transitions in a day, because a student now, instead of having 8 classes in a given day, would have 6. Students then also in a trimester schedule, whereas in a regular year they would have the ability to earn, if they took all 8 periods all year long, they could earn 8 credits in a given year. In this case, they would be able to earn actually 2 more each year. So over a 4-year period, they would be able to earn 8 additional credits.
I got lost on that.
Yeah, I think I got a little lost on that. Basically, within a trimester schedule,
Oh, of course, okay.
to earn 1 credit, you have to complete 2 of the trimesters, 2 of the 3 trimesters. So technically, where a student in 1 year could earn 1 credit in a given time slot, they can earn 1.5, because that third one, they could take an elective for 1 of the trimester and earn 0.5 credits.
Got it.
So that also, not only in terms of their total credits, if that's what you want to use to calibrate and to add with, it also would allow them to take more credits within an English, more credits within a science, and more credits within a math. This also, one of the things when we surveyed students and parents, not surprisingly, the things that were important to students were quite a bit different than were important to parents. The one area that they had in common was that both parents and students saw great value and wanted more opportunities to job shadow, to intern, and to explore careers, not just at the end of their senior year, but potentially throughout their 4 years. By having the trimester schedule and having more slots available to earn credits, that also provides us more time where we can put in opportunities for students to do independent studies with job shadowing, to do internships before their senior year. And so that's one of the needs that we saw from both parents and students. So this gives us more flexibility to do that. Students can also, and this is one of the things that we got through visiting a school, Daniel Hand High School has a trimester schedule. When we visited Daniel Hand High School, one of the things they talked about that to help to manage what a student is doing after school, they can choose when they want their heavy semester or their light semester. So for example, if they play a fall sport where they're going to be coming home late at 9 or 10 o'clock, they may make that the one semester where they might take 4 classes out of 6 or 5 classes out of 6. And then in another semester where they don't participate in an extracurricular activity, that may be an opportunity. They're going to choose to go heavy in that time. So again, when we talk about that student life and that school culture, allowing a student and a family to make those decisions with a more flexible schedule, it increases more than an 8-period static schedule that we have now. Also more timely interventions. One of the things that you'll see and you'll hear about is what's called the gap in a course. And what that means is you might take Algebra 1 or geometry, and you might take that in the first semester and not come back and take it into the 3rd semester. So you have actually a whole one of the trimesters as not taking that course. The research shows that there's not that loss of information. There's not that loss for the students that choose to take Algebra 1 or geometry or English 10 in that way. They don't have to take it that way, but it's an option for them. When I talk about interventions, what that would allow us to do is currently we have a student that's in, let's say, Algebra 1, and they start to struggle in Algebra 1. they're continuing in Algebra 1 while they're struggling, and we're trying to help them, and we provide support after school. They take advantage of our Academic Assistance Center. Okay, the train is still going, and they're trying to continue to catch up, and sometimes that can be a losing battle. If we see that student and they're enrolled in a trimester algebra class, what we can do after the first trimester, we can pull them out, give them an intervention in that middle trimester, and then put them back into Algebra 1 for the second trimester. So they actually can pause, we can shore up the areas that they need growth in while the train's not moving, and then get them boarded back on the train and continue to the destination. I love that flexibility. That works for a lot of our students. And then lastly, the opportunity for our teachers to collaborate, innovate, and take risks. Our teachers have risen to the challenge of building a curriculum that is rigorous and innovative, and that takes time, and that takes, we have to dedicate time for them to talk and to collaborate and to talk about their experiences. And we need to, as schools, not just in Branford, in all schools, we need to start look at schedules in a different way and not look at them as periods and minutes, but just time for them to get together and talk. Because if we want them to do the planning that's needed to work with our kids and support our kids, we have to give them the time to do that also. And within a trimester schedule, that gives us that flexibility to look at our time in a different way. And so we're looking to move forward with the trimester schedule. We're excited about it. It's still a lot of work to be done because we have to go through our entire program of studies and really change it. We have to go through our whole computer system and update it. But this is work worth being done. And so we're really excited about it. I want any questions I'd ask, you can ask the faculty, members of this committee. I'm fully confident they can talk about it from their own experiences, too.
Committee, Shannon?
I'm sorry, how many minutes did you say each class would be?
45.
Approximately 65.
So what happens, my only question, I love the trimester idea. My only concern or question might be what happens with those open periods? Is that a 60-something minute open period?
There's a variety. It's really how we choose to define that.
Okay.
Potentially, it could be a 65-minute open period. But also potentially a student could determine to take advantage of an academic assistance center. And that they could choose to use half of that to support an elective and take, for example, a private lesson that supports the work they're doing in band or orchestra. So that's the exciting part of it. Okay. That really gives us a lot of, that helps maintain our flexibility and gives more options to our kids.
Okay. So it gives, the children do have an opportunity to find something to keep them busy for that time period. It's not
Absolutely.
Just, great.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I like
That's it.
I just have a question about, so they're going down to only 6 classes a day. Are they still taking the same 6 classes every day, or is it Monday and Tuesday you're taking math and, is it mixed up a little, or is it still 6 classes a day?
So as far as I know, our plan is that it would be 1 through 6 would be the same Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but they're going to have a different 6 classes in a different order, fall, winter, and spring. Okay. So you're going to get variation that way. We're not going to have an A-B day rotation with the trimester schedule.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. So let's see. Each trimester will be about 13, 14 weeks?
I believe so. I'd have to look at exactly that, but approximately.
And how does it translate into contact time in terms of, I mean, I love the idea, and this goes back to what I said earlier about AP, of being able to go more in depth in each course area, which is real learning. So how does that translate into contact time? I mean, will it be reduced or will it be increased or?
It's approximately the same.
It would have to be.
It would be approximately the same. It's just that they can go deeper, so you have less transitions and interruptions, so that continuous flow.
Right.
So many times I hear from teachers, "Oh, I'm just about to get to the part where there's engagement in choir, and then I have to stop." So you get that, like you said, that deeper inquiry, that deeper understanding, that opportunity to develop. But the instructional time is roughly the same.
So when we report to the state on instructional hours, it's still going to be 900 to 1,000, give or take, right? I mean, it doesn't change what we're required to do by the state.
No, not at all.
I
No,
wouldn't imagine it would.
we'll still meet those requirements. I'd like to think that contact time will be redefined,
Yes.
will look different.
Yes, and that'll be interesting to hear about. I appreciate hearing you talk about the faculty, because when you talk about climate, I absolutely agree with your concept of trying to slow things down for kids, try to reduce or minimize stressors. But this is a workplace, and the teachers are employees, and it's got to be a rich environment for them. And so I appreciate that you're also on top of that. I think it's really important that they feel professional engagement and enrichment and not pressure and stress, even though they'll never not have stress. I get that. So when are we ready to go? Is this a 2019-20?
Yeah,
School year
2019, we'll have to be ready to go by the fall, because that's when we have to have our program of studies developed, so students can register.
Fall of 1920?
Yep, so the work will start very soon.
So it's not 18-19, that's the next school year.
Yeah.
And
Yes,
you wouldn't,
students have almost completed the registration for next year already.
sure.
And so, and again, this is something that you really want to be thoughtful and take your time with. And so that's what we chose to do that for the 1920 year.
Excellent. You said private lessons. Would this also involve students leaving the campus, or you're talking about on-site?
On-site, on campus.
Anybody in the public have a comment or question about high school scheduling? Yes, Robin. Could you either, come quick to a mic. Yeah. You can, oh,
Wow, look at that, fancy.
and just identify yourself and.
Hello, hello, hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. My daughter's in high school, and I was just wondering if it's six classes a day rather than 8. Will they have a reduced number of opportunities to take a 65-minute study hall?
No. I'm not sure.
No, because essentially right now we have 8 credits throughout the year. So we have 4 credits students can take in the fall semester, and 4 credits student can take in the spring. Each semester they can earn 0.5 credits per semester, so that would be 8 altogether. And they could substitute any one of those periods and have an open. If we move to a trimester, it would be 6, 6, 6. So instead of having 16 periods in which they could insert an open period, they would now have 18 periods in which they could insert an open period. So overall, throughout the course of the year, there's going to be more opportunities. Now, it would be less likely that they're going to have 2 opens the way they might now occasionally with our A-B day rotation, but to have 1, there's actually an increased opportunity for that because there's 9 credits available per year as opposed to 8, and that roughly equates to class time.
If you say so.
Does that make sense? All right.
It's hard to
If I
visualize.
had a whiteboard,
I'll go to school.
I could talk to you. I can draw it out after. I swear it's true.
I guess the concern that raises for me, Joel, and I'm sure we'll hear about it from you, is so students that do manage to either have an open period or need additional academic support, that's not going to be left to chance, right? I mean, are there going to be pods where actual teachers are ready and available to step in when a student, how structured is that going to be?
So currently we have academic assistance, which is manned by a math teacher every period of the day, and that would remain available for students. And Lee mentioned earlier that gap period where intervention will be in place. So those students who are in need of intervention and need of help will be identified quickly and responded to. So students aren't just kind of haphazardly everywhere.
Yeah, so it's not like showing up at a room and saying, I need help and nobody's there kind
Correct.
of thing. Okay.
No, and what this schedule gives us the opportunities to possibly replicate that not only in math, but to have, for example, a writing lab, to have an inquiry lab, to have a computer online learning lab. So that this gives us the opportunity to look at, again, as Hamlet said, to kind of reimagine when we say contact time, what that means.
Excellent. Thank you. Anybody else? Yes. And this will have to be the last question.
That's fine. Hi, Nancy Kendrick. I have a quick question. I walked in a little bit late. How long are the periods today?
45 minutes each.
45, so they're going to go to 65?
Yes.
I think you said. So the open periods, I heard you answer that. They still will have open periods, kids.
Yes.
So, because my son right now has a period and a half exactly with the AB every other day. That's a long time for kids not to be in a class, 65 minutes. Mm-hmm. And during those open periods, is it my understanding they can do, I know he has something that's called a red card. So he goes, he checks in, tells them where he is, but then he could roam freely in the school. But my understanding is some other open periods, you don't have to check in. So I don't understand the whole open period. And I think that's a long time to let the kids be out.
Okay, so as a freshman, he has a red card, correct? Your student would be so that red card in a good way, not in the soccer way.
Thanks.
So
takes after me.
There you go. As a sophomore, the default is an open period. As a freshman, you have to earn the open period.
Okay.
Upperclassmen, the default is an open period. There are ways upperclassmen can lose that. Mm-hmm. But right now, our plan is to go forward. Certainly, as a teacher in the building, I'm aware of a potential issue that I think a lot of the parents are. And I think we have some things in place already that we know. But I also think we might have to adjust. We might have to see how our plan goes and see if it's working, or we might have to adjust from it. I think we're open to the idea of adjusting, but we are putting things in place so we're not going in without a safety net.
Okay, thank you.
I think just before we close, I think that concept and that question kind of lends itself to the character development that I think we all want to see in students, certainly as one of their attributes to be self-directed learners, so that idle time is either going to be quality idle time or it's going to be used in a way that they think is meaningful. So I mean, it's easy to say there's going to be a lot of loitering and sort of ugliness, which I don't see happening because I know that the high school is pretty well known for character development.
Yeah, and that's what the students have now after their freshman year is called a self-directed study. And that really is in line with what our mission is. Students have to learn how to manage open time. When they leave our school, whether they go into a vocation or they go into post-secondary school, they're going to have a lot of free time. And so part of what we do is we believe if we set our expectations for them to manage that time, that they'll meet that expectation. Do all of our students meet it right away? No, they don't. And that's why we differentiate. Joel, Mr. Hendricks talked a little bit about students that don't meet that expectation. They may lose that self-directed opportunity temporarily, but then we're looking to support them to develop that skill. Some students walk in we had freshman orientation last night, and one of the things I talked about with the parents is that some of our kids come in as sprinters. On day one, they're ready. And some of them are long-distance runners. It takes all 4 years. We want to develop a system that's for all of them. And part of that is learning how to manage that self-directed time. And for the most part, our kids right now do a great job with that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So if there are no further comments or questions, this committee is going to adjourn to a regular meeting of the board, and we have some exciting stuff to do there. Thank you all. Thank you, Lee and Joel and everybody. Thank you very much.